Hi, it is Ask a Phyllis Thursday, and this week the question has come up to me about transgenderism. And I don't really pay attention to the political, other than it gets crazier and crazier, and it's not going to help the situation any, but just bring more confusion. So I'm not really wanting to address that, but I always like to go to what's the source? Why is this happening? And why is this happening very rapidly in the last 10 years? We've really seen it skyrocket. And for me, it goes back a little further. I looked at this issue when I first started my regimen of chemotherapy drugs. I started taking in 2005. And I was given ABDV, and I don't remember how they all spell. I remember bleomycin scars your lungs, and because of the damage that these combination of 4 drugs that work do, is just make you more susceptible for your next round of cancer, which they say at each stage you have cancer, you have a 15% chance of it increasing. And the statistics in the U.S. are 1 out of every 2 women and 1 out of every 3 men will get cancer. So it's more, where's the source coming from? Well, these ABDV drugs are pesticides, and they have been used to destroy long-term pesticides, so that when farms or plants are sprayed, they may wipe out some of the bugs at that first dosage, but what the lingering effect of it being on the leaf without killing the leaves of the plant is that it'll destroy the immune, endocrine, and fertility systems, so that and particularly I want to talk about the fertility systems. So what it does is, it's a false estrogen that destroys the testosterone, and that false estrogen is also we get it in plastics, and that's the biggest thing. Is that the artificial estrogen? It's in our groundwater. Atrazine is the particular pesticide that is in our groundwater, which is why you should be drinking charcoal water. And if you buy clear bottles of water, that adds to the problem, because it has phthalates, in the plastic. So the clearer the plastic, the more chemicals you're getting out of it, and it's what's directly killing the testosterone levels and giving false estrogen levels to both masculine and feminine. It also kills motivation, and it brings down mood. So the depression spikes that we're having, drinking too much plastic water, that may be the cause of it. But I want to go back, because in the 90s, when I was playing in dungeons more frequently, and I remember listening to the complaints of the lesbian community, and I'd go to a leather conference in Southern California that I loved. That was in the 2000s. That was, I think, oh no, when did I get there? Yeah, I know, 2000. No, first complaint came from the lesbians in the 90s, so in Texas. And they were complaining about there's no dykes, and there's not a young generation, and they're dying out. And I was like, what happened? What? No dykes? And they said because they're all crossing over. They're all becoming transgendered, and they are, instead, because the option is available to them, just take some more chemicals, which are being sold to them, and said, you can be a man, and you can have surgery, and it's cheap if you go overseas. So, opportunity, and they took it. So they were concerned about their sexual identities not being recognized and in place. So I thought it was interesting, and I was listening to a Dr. What is his name? Dr. Anthony Jay, and he did a lovely little video about the specific chemicals, and printed out the studies from 2003, 2005, 2011, 2015, and went through all the chemicals. And it was a nice little reminder for me to go, all right, yeah, that was the one. And he's specifically talking about the motivation and the mood control loss that happens when these drugs are consumed. And the way you reverse it, stop drinking out of plastic and clear your water. That's a challenge. So if you are in an urban environment, your water is pretty bad. When I lived in Beverly Hills, I spent $70 a month on filters for the bottled water I bought, because we were drinking, as I learned later from Aaron Brockovich, we were drinking fracking water that was coming down from Central California. So LA water is listed as one of the most cleanest public waters in America. However, there are over 400 legal chemicals you can use to make the water pass FDA standards and EPA standards. And those chemicals are basically just bleach. And if you do put an electrical, it's not a probe, but electrical current stimulator that you can insert in water, it'll break up those chemicals, and you see how much shitty sludge you're actually drinking. So that's the reality of water these days, and urban water is worse. And Flint, I think they just stopped paying for the chemicals, or the pipes were so bad because they couldn't hide it anymore. But that's what we're all drinking if you're having to deal with chemically treated plants, because that water is just recycled. So chemicals are causing transgenderism, and if you feel that happening in your body, which I have felt in my body, and I questioned friends of mine who had crossed over, and I said, oh, am I going through this? Is this what's happening? I thought, I knew my estrogen would drop at some stage in my life, but is this the next phase? And his advice was, no, it isn't. It's more of a pain feeling of not feeling right. And I want to go back to him and ask him about his own diet, because there's so many chemical cocktails that you do to your body that we don't really understand or pay attention to or aware of their effects. And even as I went back and looked at Wikipedia, they soft sell the damage, and it's one sentence that this could be long term. I'm like, yeah. And they don't even talk about the brain fog side effects that happens to this, or how to detox the body. None of that information is given to you, and that's a disservice. But the information is being controlled, so unless you dig, you don't find. So I thank you for the question. And for me, it was about saving my own butt, not waiting for it to come on NBC News or someone to do a study and admit they've been lying all this time. It was find out your life depends upon it. So enjoy your health. Take care of it as best you can. Be aware that we are living in a toxic surface. I don't know what's going on underneath the surface. I'd like to go find out. So if anybody's got some friends that are going inward, I'd like to hitchhike along with them and see if we can get cleaner air and check out that internal sun that they talk about. We know it's a fireball, so that sounds like a sun to me. So blessed be everyone. Hope to see you. Oh, I've got so much going on. I'm excited, but I won't bother you with that on today. Follow me on YouTube, please. And Tuesdays, my Patreon folks get all my time and all my videos. Thursday, Ask a Phyllis is, and a Phyllis is the newest growth on a plant. So the newest sprouts or leaves are a Phyllis, and so there's always something new coming up, is what you hope. And then Sundays, commentaries and things we really need to pay attention to. Blessed be. See you soon.